Hello, this is your captain speaking, and this is Come Fly With Me, and I'm joined here today with my brother-in-law, Tim. Tim, do you want to introduce yourself?
Well, yes. It's been a while since I was involved in one of your other videos,
Not
but
that
it's
long.
nice to be back.
It's been like a month and a half. But
It's only been that long.
Tim is a really cool guy. He helped me make a video where we drank and went to the moon, and I'm gonna link it like right here in the video. If you're wondering what's going on the screen right now, I'm losing control of my ship, but I'm playing Star Citizen. I'm just gonna dick around in the lap race mode, so you guys can like watch gameplay or whatever while we talk about space news, because that's what Come Fly With Me is about. It's a space news show where we discuss the happenings of space in the last week, because we're gonna try and make this a weekly show. Happenings of space in the last week, and talk about our opinions and stuff on them. So, I think we picked a really interesting week to actually start this show. A lot of things have happened, like big things.
I concur.
It would be nice if you also talked to, Tim. That's
Didn't know what else to say there.
okay. So I guess we'll just head right on to it. The first big thing, the biggest article to come out this week on the space page for Reddit, because that's where I got all of my sources.
Always a good source.
Yeah, is the White House wants to allocate $18.5 billion to NASA for the 2016 fiscal year budget.
Yeah, I think it's a pretty big and bold move. I mean, space travel has kind of been up and down in priorities, at least in budgetary wise. So I think it's a move into the right direction, and I think it definitely springboards off of the civilian space agency kind of taking over more for NASA and resupply missions and whatnot.
It does. Space control is really important. But I also read in that very same article, I think it was the same article, that the U.S. wants to give more resupply missions to commercial companies. I think it was that same article. I don't know. Give it to the commercial companies so NASA can focus more on the explorative launches, while we give the commercial companies just like reasons to go up there without
it's like
without
the
us.
logistical support behind the missions will come from the civilian side. And,
Yeah.
much more of the actual deep space exploration and scientific methodology will come from NASA. I think it's a good layout.
So a lot of money is going towards NASA's very ambitious plans to send a craft to Europa. I got really excited when I read the article, and then I read the article. I was a little disappointed, to be quite honest with you, because they're sending just an orbiter to Europa. An orbiter is really important. It can tell us a lot of stuff about the moon. However, I wish we were sending a lander over there, because we could figure out so much more if we just sent like a little mini rover to go explore the surface.
Yeah, absolutely. I've seen a lot of different designs for like submersibles too, not just sitting on the surface ice, but like using little heated rods to melt their way down through the ice, however thick it may be, and then getting down into the hopefully liquid portion of the water.
Well, it makes me wonder if the ESA is going to do that first or something, because I know the ESA already has plans to send a craft to the Jupiter moons here pretty soon, and the Juno mission is already on its way. That's from NASA, I believe. So that should be there in 2016. I'm excited to see what results come from that. I'm a little bit surprised that there's no focus here on Titan. It doesn't seem like, because you were about to say something.
No, I was just gonna say, yeah, it is kind of interesting. Everyone's always completely focused on Europa, whether it's the ESA or NASA. So I don't know what the driving force is behind that. Maybe there's more behind the scenes that they know that make it more of a logical target, I guess, for scientific purposes.
Perhaps. I don't know, because one of the things. Okay, we've landed on, I think, 3 or 4 bodies since we started doing this whole space exploration thing. Not just America, but also Russia and what have you. Actually, just America and Russia. Nobody else has. So we've landed on the moon, and we've got good pictures of the surface there, obviously. We've landed... the Russians landed a probe on Venus, or a couple of probes on Venus, I think, that they died after a couple of hours just because of the immense surface pressure there. And we've also obviously landed stuff on Mars. And I think a couple other countries are on the way to do that stuff too, like India and whatever. And then we've also landed the Huygens probe on Titan. The reason why we did a landing there is because it was really easy, considering the fact that it has a really dense atmosphere. It's easy to use parachutes to land things there. So I'm surprised that we're not thinking of sending a rover to Titan or something because it'd be so easy to land it compared to landing it on any other kind of moon like Ganymede or Europa or whatever.
Yeah, the atmosphere definitely plays a big role, especially for the landing aspect. Anyone who's played Kerbal Space Program has a probably a more in-depth understanding of that than just reading about it in books.
Yeah. It's like the fact that those places have an atmosphere make them significantly easier to land on. It's several tons of fuel versus just bringing a couple parachutes with you and maybe a little bit of fuel to slow yourself down. Although the atmosphere on Titan is so dense, it's like 1.4. I think it's like 1.47 Earth atmospheres. So it's kind of like lying down at the bottom of a swimming pool. I've heard it described before. It's pretty freaking dense.
I guess one of the other components that would play into that is then you have to worry about weather effects on your mission.
That's true.
Whether you're going to have sandstorms or some other random anomaly that is strictly a weather system, that you're not going to have that issue at all on a moon-like body that doesn't have that atmosphere.
Also, I suppose the idea that if we were to go to Titan and somewhat mess up our trajectory, you could end up in the middle of like a hydrocarbon ocean and sink to the bottom of it.
True.
I think that would be a kind of a disappointing waste of a mission, although kind of funny.
Yeah, I think a lot of when I talk about exploring other planets to other people, sometimes they aren't as familiar with the, I guess, logistical or even just systematic problems of how big a task it is that you take GPS for granted. So on Earth, it's really easy to pinpoint where you want to go and where you actually are at any given time, simply because we have the satellite systems in place to tell you where you are at all times. But if you're going to another planet or another moon that, of course, does not have that system, it's really a lot more of, so much more calculation has to go into place beforehand to take into account the rotation of the planet, the trajectory of the craft itself. It really blows my mind when I think about the fact you can't just say, oh, I'm going to use GPS to land on that spot.
Yeah. I wonder if when we go to Mars and set up missions there, that if they're going to like do a pre-GPS system, just to kind of make it safer for the potential settlers or just the explorers to get around there.
Yeah, definitely, especially when you're going to have issues like we talked about. Sandstorms are going to be a big problem for visibility and navigation-wise if you don't have some kind of system in place to help you maneuver without having to rely on what you can see visually. Also
communications, for that matter. I think sandstorms could kill the shit out of any kind of communications back to Earth.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Okay, so next thing I want to bring up here, it is the 44th anniversary of the Apollo 14 landing. That one involved, I think, the first rover to go to the moon.
Yeah, they were talking about, I forgot what it was called. It was called the Modular Equipment Transporter.
Yeah.
It was helping carry tools around on the surface. It makes a lot of sense. I mean, they don't have much maneuverability in the suits, so think about just carrying a box of tools with you would be, your balance would be all off. You wouldn't have anywhere to put it. So.
Plus, if you dropped it and it burst open, you'd have a bunch of just tools, probably lost in the moon dust.
Oh yeah,
it would be a bad situation.
Yeah, wait. The lack of dexterity with the gloves would be probably extremely infuriating.
Which makes me wonder
when I drop a quarter on the ground and I can't pick the quarter up off the flat floor in the kitchen.
Oh yeah, it's infuriating. I hate two-dimensional objects, especially when it's like a note card or a piece of paper on the floor. It's just like, oh god, I'm gonna spend way too long picking this up, and I'm gonna embarrass myself in front of everyone I know.
As you're failing, you're getting more and more self-conscious about it, which is making you more stressed and much less likely to actually pick it up.
So they left the rover there, obviously. I wonder if at some point in the future, in a couple hundred years, when civil transportation of the moon happens, how much that would be worth if you were to steal it and take it back to Earth.
Oh man, that'd be crazy. I know it'd be in good condition too, because what kind of effects on the moon would degrade that technology to the point where it's not gonna rust.
Well,
it's not gonna.
There's the weathering from like heat and cold, I suppose.
True. But I wonder. It'd be interesting to see how much it's degraded over time.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see like the old sites when we can be able to return to those too, to see if because the moon has a very it's not an atmosphere per se, but it's kind of just a shroud of light dust that kind of travels everywhere from previous impacts. I'm wondering if those are getting covered up at all to some degree.
Yeah, I wonder what the speed at which the dust travels around and covers the surface again.
Yeah.
Have we observed any recent impacts on the moon, or is that pretty much everything? that we see on the surface has taken place from like long before we were really observing.
I'm pretty sure we've seen impacts on the moon before, and like had that been reported within like the past 10 years, I want to say. I don't know. You want to do a Google search on that?
Yeah, let me search for that real quick.
All right.
Oh wow. Oh wow, there've been a lot.
Yeah. Well, it's just
I'm
like
looking at a list that goes. It lists up to 331 right now. The most recent one being 30 October 2014.
well, I guess so. I guess
Wow,
the people
this is a really cool system.
people who watch the moon for a living, and just think of how many we haven't seen like on the dark side of the moon too.
Yeah.
Thanks, Pig Floyd, by the way, for that nod. Yeah, there have been a lot. I think humanity has crashed a probe they called the Deep Impact after the movie into the moon and like observed it.
Oh, that does sound familiar.
Yeah. So I'm sure there's a lot of value in that knowledge. Next thing I want to bring up is tomorrow. I very much love Elon Musk. He's super optimistic. If I could someday get an interview with him for any reason, that would be fucking amazing and probably the highlight of my life.
Oh, that'd be great. He is a rare mix of being very optimistic and having a ridiculous amount of money to be able to build off of that optimism.
Yeah. I'm very supportive of like pretty much everything he does, and one of my life goals is actually to own a Tesla, like a Tesla Model 3. Just because
nice.
I think it's a super nice looking car if you look at all the photos, and it can go over 400 miles off one charge. That's fucking incredible.
That is quite impressive.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting that it took so long for car manufacturers to make electric cars or renewable fuel cars that actually look visually appealing. Because for so long I felt like they were tied into it has to look futuristic, so they did what they thought cars will look like in the future, and of course it never turns out that way.
Of course. I think, well, the style changes over time. Like, you look at cars that came out in the early 1990s, and they're all boxy and gross looking. It's like, that's what people liked at the time. That's what sold big.
Kind of headed back that way now if you look at cars like the Scion and
well,
Honda
I suppose.
Element.
I'm wondering, like, what cars are going to look like in 10, 20 years. It's how different they're going to look, and it's like, what were we thinking back then? That's fucking ugly.
Yeah, exactly. Everyone always looks back. Like, especially your kids are going to look back and be like, ew. Why did your stuff look like that?
Ew, why does it have wheels? Why isn't it hovering? That's weird.
What, you had to drive it yourself?
Oh, that's a reality that's coming closer, too.
Oh, that's very exciting to me, because though I like driving to some extent, I like driving when I'm going somewhere and it's an interesting drive, but if it's just the day-to-day, sometimes I don't want to deal with it. Especially if there's lots of traffic or just a bad area of town. I don't want to have to think about it.
If you have the options, that'd be nice. Like, you saw the steering wheel, it can self-drive if you want. If you want to, like, play Hearthstone or something on your tablet, then go ahead and feel free.
Yeah, I think definitely having the hybrid. I don't like the whole idea of getting rid of it entirely yet. I don't feel super comfortable about that. Plus, then it gets kind of boring.
Well, you never want to rely on the version 1 of things. Like, when the first teleporters become a thing, I'm not going to rely on that version 1.
Yeah, that'd be pretty disturbing.
Yeah, that'd be several bad Star Trek episodes there. So back to what I was saying. Elon Musk, he's doing. That was a long segue. Elon Musk is doing a launch where he's gonna try and get his booster to land on the drone ship again. And what happened last time was very interesting. How it happened, because it actually did make it to the drone ship, the booster stage, but it didn't come down at the right angle, and that's kind of bad. So it hit the drone ship just a little bit harder and more sideways than we were expecting.
But I mean, that on its own, though, that it could still navigate itself to that location on the floating barge, that alone was a pretty impressive undertaking.
Yeah,
so I think. And you listen to their you interview Elon Musk about it, and he was saying really they only expected maybe a 50% chance of it working anyway, so they were glad that it even got there.
That's what I love about Elon Musk too. Is he kind of just pulled that number out of his ass too.
Yeah, it's probably pretty similar to
that,
actually.
It's a reasonable thing to say to make up a statistic in that scenario. Is there's a 50% chance we're gonna fuck this up.
Yeah.
So the next thing I want to bring up, after the SpaceX thing, I'm very optimistic for this one. I mean, they made it so close last time. I don't see why they wouldn't be able to do it this time.
Yeah, it's a really cool concept too, in terms of getting the economy of lifting a rocket into space
Just make it a
down
lot
to
cheaper.
a much more affordable level. Yeah.
Because really, it's not the engine stage that's the expensive part. It's the well, no, it's the fuel tank that's inexpensive and the engine that's really expensive. And like, I don't know. If you looked at SpaceX's engines, they usually have like 9 ports on that shit. That's crazy. So yeah.
And I was interested to find out too that so many of the rockets that are used now by the civilian agency are old, like, Soviet military rocket technology that were purchased in mass once the Soviet Union collapsed, and they just refurbished these rocket motors, and that's what they're using right now. So it makes perfect sense that instead of fabricating all new engines every time, you just utilize what you have.
Oh yeah. I'm really interested to see like what else kind of innovations can be figured out for space travel to make it cheaper, yet more effective still. Like, eventually we're gonna see rockets made out of like grain silos or something if we needed to do that. Like, this is an old retired grain silo. It's made out of aluminum. We could probably send that up there. So that'd be interesting to see.
At the very least, just like pulling the materials out of them. I mean,
well, it's like as more civilian agencies arrive, they're going to want to try and find out cheaper ways to get themselves into space too.
Exactly, because there's one thing the government is not good at. It is finding ways to do things cheaply. That's what civilian agencies are fantastic at.
Well, civilian agencies, I don't know. I think the government spends a lot of money on things it doesn't need to spend a lot of money on. Like, they go to the lowest bidder, but the lowest bidder is charging them up because they can. I mean, who else are they going to buy from?
Exactly.
So it's interesting how that works out. Next thing I want to talk about is Ceres.
Oh, yes.
Or how do you pronounce that? I've never been clear on that.
I have no idea. I always say series.
Yeah.
I know that's probably not even close to right. I have no idea. Caress?
Caress. It's the largest object in the Kuiper Belt. It's about the size of Texas. Good old Texas. It is expected to have the necessary ingredients for life, but obviously we're not expecting to see any life there because it's kind of a dead rock in the middle of the asteroid belt.
Yeah, that's much more about trying to find the ingredients for life in an early formed planet that never finished forming from the early phases. So
yeah.
It'd be really cool to see like a snapshot of what Earth looked like.
Yeah. What Earth looked like at one point in its forming, back when we had the accretion disk and everything going on in the solar system.
Right.
Yeah.
And how that contributed to where we have an abundance of life on this planet now.
Yeah. And we've gotten closer to it. We've taken photos of it. We can see it's got kind of a yellowish color to it, and it has a big white crater on it towards the north.
Yeah, and they were talking about them trying to speculate whether that crater was frozen water vapor or...
Yeah, or just like a frozen lake that froze a very long time ago, and it's been generally uninterfered.
Yeah, it's definitely a very prominent feature on the surface.
It is. It's very glaring. I'm excited to see the closer-up images of that. Yeah, that's about all I have to say about that one. It's a very short article.
I realized it was a giant snowman by someone in the past, and it's just sitting there smiling, waving at us.
They get there and realize it's a giant eyeball in space that's just been watching us this whole time. I've actually seen a lot of articles on the Our UFOs page about, like, it being an alien base or something. Probably not.
Oh man, what if it's like, so you look at this kind of the grainy picture they have at the bottom of the article. It's black and white, and you have the really prominent white spot in the top left corner. It kind of looks like the Death Star.
It does look a little bit like the Death Star. But then again, we have Mimas, which also looks like the Death Star. So that's very concerning, the idea that we might have 2 Death Stars in our solar system, just waiting for us to get out into space more.
There's going to be an entire squadron of these Death Stars in our solar system, just waiting for us to start asking the wrong questions.
And we have to start developing a fleet of X-Wings and a fleet of Y-Wings that we know are all going to die on the mission.
Oh, absolutely.
So everybody...
Why would you name any spacecraft anything other than something from the alphabet?
The B-Wing, I think, is the weirdest looking craft in all of Star Wars.
I like it though. I like the B-Wing.
I don't know.
I don't really see the connection with the letter B. Like every other ship, you can see the connection to the letter that it's designated to it. B-Wing, I don't think so. They should have called it like the T-Wing or something.
Yeah, the T-Wing would have made sense because it looks kind of like a lowercase T, but like a very tall lowercase T.
I don't see any part of it that looks like a B.
I don't know. I like things that make sense as a thing that can actually fly, and that doesn't make any sense as a thing that can actually fly. That bugs me about it. It's just a peeve of mine. And I guess I shouldn't really complain because so many sci-fis do things with things that wouldn't be able to fly.
Well, things have to look cool.
Yeah,
If
they
there's
do.
anything we've learned from recent sci-fi movies, things have to look cool.
I know, but fucking look at Star Citizen.
That
Doesn't
is true.
It looks very cool, and they all look somewhat practical. There are some that don't fit into that exception at all. Also, I just tried changing my camera view while flying through that goal right there, and that was horrifying.
Oh.
Hmm?
I said it looked like you were blacking out in the. I think I
Oh.
might be lagging behind you, but you were blacking out in the screenshot I was seeing.
I'm always a little bit blacking out. Anyway, next thing. The DARPA jet launch. Ow.
Yeah, this one really interests me, and I'm curious to see like what the intentions are behind it. But basically, it's where they have the typical already in place, already established fighter jet systems, and they can mount this pod on the bottom of them. And basically, they use the fighter jet as the launch system for this pod to go into higher orbit and go into low Earth orbit. So it's a pretty interesting concept. It's just not very practical for size wise, but if you want to get a large network of small satellites in place very quickly, it seems like a good option.
Yeah, it'd be very useful. Like just launch them in thirds around the planet, so we get a network of low orbit satellites all in thirds around the planet. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think it looks very cool. I don't know if that thing would have the fuel to carry itself into orbit though. Because
No,
it
and
looks
so far,
very
since it's
small.
so early into the project, all you have are of course, the little DARPA computer-generated movies that make it look like, oh, that's the best thing ever.
Yeah, but we can't really say that yet. Also, if you looked at the craft, it looked very Kerbal.
It really does. It's true.
Yeah. I don't know. It's optimistic. It would obviously just be used for defense purposes, which obviously very important.
Yeah, that's what I was kind of. I mean, obviously being DARPA, that's their primary concern.
Oh yeah.
But I think it has a lot of very rapid deployable tactical scenarios where it could be utilized, but for exploration, really not so much. Communication and tactical, maybe. That's
Yeah,
about it.
communications and tactical. And really, like, that's pretty much what we have to thank the military for in space travel is GPS and tactical and communication and stuff. All very useful things that have come out of military science and exploration. But that's kind of a problem with space exploration, is that we keep looking inward towards ourselves. Like, we have these systems in place, and we can, yeah, we have room to make them better, but I wish we would look outward more. It's like building a navy and then only patrolling our own shores. There's not much that could be really done there or discovered or found out from that after a while.
Well, from what we can learn from Ender's Game, is all you need is an exterior threat, and then all of a sudden, focus is pushed very much so outside of the realm of just Earth.
That is true, however, comma, there's very little chance that we will go to war with an alien race and survive long enough to be able to build a fleet to send it there. I feel like
Semantics.
when I hear that, I imagine us sending a 1970 space shuttle up there. Like, we revive it, we put some machine guns on it.
like Gatling gun on
Yeah,
the front of it.
put a Gatling gun on it. And then we send it up there and be like, fuck you, aliens! And then they destroy us in a second.
They probably just look at, oh, that's so cute.
Like the EMP the ship, they strap little thrusters to it, deorbit it so they can humiliate us while it falls into the atmosphere with the crew on board. And then laugh and then blow up Earth. And then, well, not blow it up, but take all the resources from us and use us as slaves. Because that's a very likely thing to happen. If they were bad aliens, I'm saying. I don't subscribe necessarily to the whole Stephen Hawking idea of we shouldn't communicate with aliens because, I don't know, they might not necessarily be coming billions of miles to destroy us all.
Exactly. They could be driven every bit as much by exploration and the desire to learn as they are to the desire to conquer. So
Plus, we don't know if
we're in
every...
that 50-50 realm again.
True, we're in that 50-50 realm. Plus, we don't know if every kind of race to developed in such a warring kind of history as humanity did. I mean, humanity, it kind of makes sense why we're a warring race, because in the beginning it was us against nature so much, because we weren't entirely the dominant creatures there. Until after a while, when we developed, you know, weapons and fun stuff.
And now we have chicken nuggets.
Yeah, now we have chicken nuggets. Now food comes to our doorstep. You can order stuff off Amazon to come to your door instead of chasing after a gazelle for 10 minutes. 10 minutes optimistically, if you're a good runner. I don't know.
I'd be running indefinitely.
Maybe if we met an alien race that was on top of its planet and it was like, yeah, we don't really want to go to war with you because we don't see the point of it. And
Yeah, we're already at the top, so we're pretty good.
And
We're good up here.
humans, we do have kind of an innate aggression towards other things, like other people, mostly, because that's what we see all the time.
Especially things we don't understand completely.
So what if something that we didn't understand didn't have that innate aggression, or not nearly as much, I mean, and they just were like, yeah, bro, we're here to learn. That's all that matters to us. And they're these super chill kind of stoner aliens who want to help us. Who knows? But it's very interesting speculation about things that we're probably not going to see in our lifetime.
That is true,
Yeah.
unfortunately. As much as I really
Unfortunately.
wish, just for the sheer understanding, like even if we did make contact and they were hyper aggressive, and we did notice that they sent their entire fleet to come wipe us out, at least that would answer the question of, okay, well, we're not alone.
Yeah. At least
Nothing
now
else-
we know.
Nothing else we would know that we are not by ourselves. It's a little tiny place.
Yeah. So, very good job on the first show here. We, this very rational show about talking about space stuff devolved into a show about talking about aliens that are never going to happen. Good job. I enjoyed it very much. If you want to say any kind of goodbye thing, now's your time, Tim.
No, I'm really hoping we can make this a regular thing. It's fun. It gets me to read more articles, get out of my job so much, and focus more on things that really interest me and discuss them with someone that has very similar taste to me. So thank you very much for inviting me.
Oh yeah, it's been great, and you're going to be back next week. I'm going to keep annoying you about this because I think it's going to be really fun to do for a while.
Challenge accepted.
Challenge accepted. I also really hope the viewers have enjoyed listening to this two random guys talk about space stuff, because, I mean, we're not really qualified to talk about it, to be quite honest with you. None of us have degrees in this kind of stuff.
I have played a lot of StarCraft in
Yeah,
World. And
that is true. I've always been very enthusiastic about space. I was the vice president of my school's astronomy club back in high school. The only reason I was vice president is because I didn't have any kind of people skills to talk to other, like, to gather people there. So the girl who was in charge of the club would bring people there, and I would just gab on about a bunch of new space news. And this is kind of filling that void of me being able to talk about space news again. So I'm very happy about that. So I'd like to say goodbye to all of my lovely viewers, and thank you so much for watching. This is your captain signing off. Bye.